This is Counterpoint, and I'm your host, Tanya Granick-Allen. We often hear many complaints about the education system in Canada, whether it concerns declining academic outcomes, controversial ideological curriculums, lack of discipline in the class, cell phone use, or too many days off for teachers. Many Canadians have concerns about the direction our education system is headed. Well, look no further than a recent Leger research polling report commissioned by secondstreet.org, and clearly you will see that a majority of Canadians share this sentiment. So, what should our education system be doing better? How are parents responding to public education? Are these sentiments a growing trend in Canada? Well, joining me now to unpack this latest research is Colin Craig, president of secondstreet.org. Colin, thank you so much for joining me today. I have to say, I was really interested to read this latest research report. I love education policies. I have 5 children, so this is sort of up my alley. But of course, initially, I'm thinking, well, why did you do this? Why commission this kind of research?
Well, thanks for having me, Tanya. Obviously, education is a very important aspect in terms of government services. Um, it's important for young people to learn how to read, to write, to do math, to understand science, and so many other subjects. So we thought it would be interesting a couple of years ago to poll Canadians and just get a temperature check on whether or not Canadians think the system is going in the right direction or wrong direction. And so we asked a question back in 2020. We hired Leger to poll Canadians. And at the time, we found that about 32% of Canadians said wrong direction. And that's obviously a disturbing number because when you've got a third of, let's call them customers, the parents with kids in the system and that are don't feel the system is doing very well or that it's not going in the right direction, that's problematic. So we asked the question again last year, and what we found was actually a significant increase. It went from about 32% to 51%.
Wow.
And so, at that point, it was more than a majority of Canadians that felt that way. And what we found was that we couldn't really explain why. I mean, anecdotally, we had some ideas. We'd hear things from people with kids in the system or people that had kids in the system, and they would share different frustrations. But frustrations and anecdotes are, of course, different from data. And so we wanted to know nationwide what were the concerns that Canadians had with the system. So again, in 2024, we asked the question, do Canadians feel the system is going in the right direction or wrong direction? And what we found was that it actually went up to 55%. So it's continuing to, people think it's continuing to go in the wrong direction. And in addition to that, we asked a whole bunch of questions to try and really dig into what aspects Canadians feel that Canadians are frustrated by.
Now, let's talk about the scope of your polling or what you had commissioned here. How many respondents answered? Was there a specific targeting across various provinces? Was it equally weighted? That sort of thing.
Yeah, so it was conducted by Leger, and I think many of your viewers will sometimes be skeptical of polling because there have been numerous stories in the past when pollsters have got things wrong, they've been way off and so forth. We always hire Leger because they have a very good track record. You compare, for example, what they predict with the federal election results, and then on election night, you look at the actual numbers, and Leger is often very, very close. So we feel they're a reputable pollster, and that's why we continue to hire them. They surveyed about just under 1,600 Canadians from across the country. And when you have a very large sample size like that, your margin of error tends to get smaller. You tend to be more and more accurate the more people you ask these questions. And of course, they have to make sure that they have a representative sample, which means that if Ontario is 40% of the population, well, then 40% of the respondents need to be from Ontario and so forth. You want roughly half to be men, half to be women.
Yeah, and that
And
makes
so
sense.
yeah, they're very diligent with doing all those things to make sure that we can really get an idea as to what Canadians are feeling on this issue or this
And
topic.
And because we have a diversity of school types across Canada, in Ontario we have public funded Catholic, in some places it's more semi-private and whatnot. It's interesting to see how kind of access to school choice maybe skews certain things province to province. But again, with that large sample size, hopefully we can get a really broad picture.
Yeah, and we were focused on the public system. So that would be, I don't know the number offhand. I think it's probably around 80 to 90% of kids are in the public system.
Right, right. Excellent. Well, I'm looking forward to unpacking some of these numbers. We sort of scratched the surface a little bit. But once we come back from this commercial break, we're going to find out, is Canada headed in the right direction with education? We'll be right back.